The morning sunlight filtered softly through the thin curtains, bathing the small living room in a gentle golden hue. Two Psalms stood quietly by the window, her fingers lightly brushing against the rim of a teacup. She looked peaceful on the outside, yet inside her heart fluttered like a bird preparing for its first flight. For weeks, an idea had been growing inside her, an idea she once never dared to dream of: opening a company. Her own company. It wasn't just a business plan, it was a seed planted long ago by Lee, the man who had changed her life in more ways than she could count. She remembered the nights when they sat together under the dim light of the kitchen, Lee telling her again and again, "Sam, you're capable of more than you think. One day, you'll build something of your own." At the time, she laughed softly, brushing off his words as sweet encouragement from someone who loved her too much. But now, he was back, alive, safe, and standing beside her again. And suddenly, his dream became hers. As she looked at the blank notebook on the table, her heart tightened. Every page represented a possibility, a future she was both excited and terrified to face. She lifted the pen with trembling fingers, writing her name on the top of the first page. To Some, Founder. Just seeing the words almost made her cry. Behind her, the familiar sound of footsteps approached. Lee walked into the room, still drying his hair with a towel, his smile warm and bright like morning sunshine. "You're up early," he said, leaning slightly to peek at her notebook. "What are you working on?" Tusam quickly closed the cover, her face turning pink. She didn't want him to see it. Not yet. Not before she was ready. Nothing," she stuttered, avoiding his eyes. "Just writing something." Lee chuckled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to hide things from me, but it's okay. Take your time. When you're ready, tell me." His voice was soft, patient, filled with the kind of love that made Sam's chest ache. She glanced at him, wondering if he would ever understand just how much of her courage came from him. Because this plan, this company, this dream, it was all born from Lee. And now she was preparing to chase it, not for him, but with him. She breathed in deeply, feeling a strange mixture of fear and hope swirl inside her. Today was the first step. Tomorrow, she would tell Lee the truth. She would let him know that she was finally ready to build the future he once imagined for her, one she now desired with all her heart. Outside, the sky was clear and bright, and for the first time in a long time, so was her path. The next morning, Lee arrived at Sam's small rented office, a narrow room with peeling cream-colored walls and a single desk pushed against the window. Sunlight filtered through the dusty curtain, illuminating Sam's hair in a soft golden glow as she bent over her notebook, drafting plans with intense focus. She didn't hear him at first. She was too absorbed, her brows knitted, lips slightly parted the way they always were when she was thinking too hard. Lee leaned against the doorframe, watching her silently. His chest tightened. It was the mix of pride and fear. Pride because she was finally stepping into a world she deserved. Fear because he worried she would get hurt the moment she tasted ambition. When she finally looked up and saw him, she froze. "Lee, why are you here so early?" "To see what my stubborn Sam is doing before breakfast," he teased, though his voice carried an undertone of seriousness. She tried to hide her plans by pulling her notebook close, but he was faster. With a soft tug, he slid the notebook from her hands. "Let me see," he murmured. The pages were filled with sketches of logos, lists of potential services, handwritten budgets and ideas scribbled in the margins. It wasn't polished, but it was full of heart, full of Sam. A long silence followed.
Sam watched him anxiously. Lee closed the notebook gently, then placed both hands on the desk, leaning towards her. Sam, do you really plan to do this? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I want to build something of my own, something stable, something meaningful. And why didn't you tell me earlier? He asked, his eyes searching hers. Because I didn't want you to think I was doing it for you, even though in some ways, maybe I am. You always wished you could build something too. I want to finish the dream you couldn't. Those words hit. Sam, I'm proud of you, but I'm also terrified. Terrified? She repeated, confused. That you'll rise so high you won't need me anymore. Her breath caught. She reached for his hand. Lee, I don't want a company without you. I want a future with you. That's the whole point. For the first time since she told him her dream, Lee breathed easier. But the future was coming fast, and neither of them knew it would bring both opportunities and storms.
Bạn đã nói. For the next few days, Sam worked quietly but relentlessly. She woke up early, wrote business outlines, contacted suppliers, and drafted her first proposal. Lee observed everything from the distance of a half-open door, pretending to read documents while his eyes followed every step she made. The truth was simple. Lee was proud, so proud that his chest tightened whenever he saw her leaning over her laptop, calculating numbers with furrowed brows, or pacing across the room while speaking confidently on the phone. She had changed, no, grown, and yet, beneath his pride was a strange, unsettling fear he could not explain. One evening, Sam laid out charts and notes on the table. Lee, she called softly, can you help me check these financial projections? He approached, leaning over her shoulder. The scent of her shampoo, the warmth of her skin, so close, everything made his heartbeat stumble. But what scared him more was the realization that she truly no longer needed anyone to guide her, not even him. These numbers are solid, Lee said, finally tapping gently on the papers. Your plan, Sam, it's stronger than mine when I first started. Sam's cheeks reddened. Really? Yes, he said, smiling. You're incredible. Her eyes softened, but then she looked away. Lee, I want this company to stand on its own. I don't want anyone saying I succeeded because of you. Something twisted inside his stomach. He had never intended to overshadow her, but hearing her say it aloud made him feel like she was building a world where he might not fit. That night, Lee couldn't sleep. He watched Sam from the doorway as she typed late into the night, her face lit by the warm glow of her screen. There was determination in her eyes, fearless, independent, shining. What if she outgrew him? What if she flew too far and left him behind? He hated himself for thinking that way. He had always wished for her success. He had dreamed of the day she would stand confidently in front of the world. And now that it was happening, his heart trembled with both joy and an emotion he could not name. Was it fear? Or something deeper, something that whispered, Sam is becoming everything she was meant to be, even if it scares you. And for the first time, Lee realized that loving someone also meant learning how to accept the painful possibility of letting them soar, even if they flew beyond your reach. The weeks that followed felt like a slow sunrise, gentle, warm, and full of promises Sam had never allowed herself to dream of before. Her company was no longer just an idea sketched on paper. It was becoming real, piece by piece. Desks were delivered, a small signboard was ordered.
The first set of documents for registration was approved. Every step made her heart tremble, not with fear this time, but with pride. Lee was by her side through it all, quieter than usual, but always present. Sometimes he sat in the empty office space with his back against the wall, watching her measure shelves or flip through contracts. Other times, he brought her late-night noodles when she worked until the lights outside turned the streets silver. He didn't interfere. He didn't take over. He simply supported her, exactly the way she had always supported him. One evening, after they finished organizing files, Lee called her name softly. "Sam?" She turned. His expression was gentle, but something deeper shimmered behind his eyes. Something vulnerable. "When I wanted to open my own company years ago, you were the only one who believed in me. Even when I failed, even when I doubted myself, I didn't know how to protect your dreams back then. But now, I want to try again." Her breath caught. Lee stepped closer, his voice low, honest, unpolished, just the way she loved most about him. "You building this company, your company, is the bravest thing I've ever seen. I just want you to know, I'm proud of you, Sam, more than you think." Her chest tightened, emotions rising like a tide. She had waited years, years to hear words like that. Before she could reply, lighting flashed outside, followed by the soft rumble of distant thunder. But instead of fear, tonight the sound felt comforting, like nature whispering that things were changing for the better. Sam placed her hand over his. "I'm building this company because you believed in me first. You planted the dream. I'm just continuing it." His eyes softened, and the corner of his lips lifted into the kind of smile he only ever showed her. In that dim, half-finished office, with boxes still unpacked, papers scattered, and the storm humming outside, they held each other silently. Not as two people rebuilding from the past, but as two hearts finally growing toward a shared future.